Yeah.
How far is this corruption going, Mark?
Well, it goes pretty far. So Sam Bankman-Fried, he has a hyphenated last name, Bankman and Fried. And that's because one of his parents is Bankman and one of his parents are Fried. Right. And the reason why he decided to keep both of them in hyphenated is because both of his parents are pretty well known, pretty famous in the political circles. Right. So they're both professors, law professors. And his father and his mother, both kind of specifically around tax law. His father has been lobbying and writing papers to end cash, to get rid of cash, and to find ways to enforce tax policy and things like that. They're also both what they call bundlers, which means they collect lots of money and then donate that money to super PACs, right? To Democratic super PACs. So they're massively involved in the Democratic Party in politics, both in writing policy, in influencing policy, as well as raising money for the Democratic Party. So that kind of starts there. We know that his aunt works for the World Economic Forum, and John Hopkins, which of course ran the Pandemic 201. That was the event previous to the pandemic happening. So that's his aunt. His brother also.
The World Economic Forum is Klaus Schwab, right? Klaus
Schwab at the World Economic Forum, yeah. Which of course, SBF's company FTX is a partner with the World Economic Forum. Right now we're just talking about his family. So his parents, his aunt, his brother also is part of a think tank and a nonprofit pushing, pandemic and COVID policies. And so Sam Bankman-Fried this week came out and said, the worst part about FTX going bankrupt is how are we going to save the world from the next pandemic? Like that's how blind he is now, right? So that's kind of it from a high level. And so a lot of people would say, well, how did he get here, right? I mean, who put the money up for this guy to kind of build this up?
His girlfriend, her father is some professor at MIT or something like that, or
yeah. So her father,
he's way up there also.
Yeah, her father, Gary Ellison, is from MIT, which he worked under Gary Gensler, who's the head of the SEC.
Jesus.
So, of course, Sam Bankman-Fried and his girlfriend Caroline, for that runs Alameda, were very, very cozy with the SEC, Gary Gensler, as well as the CFTC. So he has hired many, many regulators from the CFTC, which is the governing body of the Commodities Futures Trading Exchange. So he's hired lots of them. He's donated lots of money to Maxine Waters. Maxine Waters is, yeah.
Another
who's
strange-looking
supposed to be in charge of the oversight of this. So she's been seen in multiple pictures. He's donated lots of money. And then this is a little bit drawing at straws, and so I don't have facts to back this up. But where there's smoke, there's fire. And FTX was founded right when Biden announced he was going to run for office. FTX became the second largest donor to the Biden administration. They donated $40 million of stolen funds to the Democratic Party for the midterms. And then, of course, when this whole Russia-Ukraine situation came up, and regardless of what the facts are behind that war, we know that wars are always a way to funnel money from taxpayers into their pockets. Very quickly, there was all this groundswell movement of let's get the people involved. And so then people wanted to donate money to the Ukrainians, and they were donating money through cryptocurrency. And of course, FTX opened up, and we'll take all that cryptocurrency and we'll donate it to Ukraine on your behalf. So now there's deep ties with Ukraine. How much of that money was being funneled, or should we say washed through that situation? So massive ties to the Biden and the Democratic Party, massive ties to the regulators, Gary Gensler and the CFTC, massive ties to Ukraine and the World Economic Forum. I mean, it is as dirty as this can get.
Jeez. I also heard that Ukraine also invested in FTX. Money came back. And so a lot of that money we sent for weapons came back to finance FTX.
Right. It looks like it was like this big circular, they are washing it through that system. He's like, he's like, whatever, right? Like, okay, I lost it. Like, I could have made it back. Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, came out 2 days ago, which I tweeted about, and he said, I would invest into Sam Bankman-Fried's next company. Like, wait, the guy who led the biggest fraud, who literally I mean, he stole over $10 billion. $10 billion. I mean, Robert, think about this. $10 billion. That's tens of thousands of families who lost everything. People's lives are ruined here. To him, it's just a couple numbers on a keyboard. Oh, $10 billion, whatever. No. We're talking about tens or hundreds of thousands of families whose lives are ruined. Now, will the Democratic Party give any of that stolen money back? Most likely not.
So Kevin O'Leary has been endorsing SBF, Sam Bankman-Fried, for a while.
Yep.
Why would he do it? I mean, why would he risk everything? Why would Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, keep sticking his neck out?
Yeah. What's interesting is somebody like Kevin O'Leary, and I don't know him personally. I did sit on the news desk with him at the Bitcoin conference last year, so I did get to hang out with him one-on-one, but I don't know him. I would just think after watching Shark Tank that he would do some due diligence before he would invest into these companies. And so when you look at what the bankruptcy guy from Enron is saying, how bad their books are, how bad things are run, there was no records, there was no nothing. How could Kevin O'Leary put money into a company like that? And now it makes me have to rethink, him and everybody else who was invested into these deals. They also got Tom Brady, poor Tom Brady and his wife Giselle. They invested a massive stake. We don't know exactly the dollar amount. They invested a massive stake in FTX. That's all gone as well. I mean, this is a big problem. But the bigger problem is, like I said, the ties to the WEF, the ties to the Democratic Party, stealing $10 billion worth of families' life savings, and then the midterms just taking it all away.
How much? Let's get down to, Tom Brady, he can make that money back. O'Leary can make that money back. What's going to happen to the millions of people who, bet the ranch on a fraud? What's going to happen to them? I mean, how long is it going to take for them to get any money back?
So, in the elections, there's polls, but then there's also like betting markets, and the betting markets are typically way more accurate than the polls are, right? And so there's a betting market going on, and it's, will SBF be federally indicted by the end of the year? And 75% of the votes say no.
Right.
No,
that's why he's offshore.
He won't be indicted. So, he's indicted. He's offshore. So it's a Bahamas corporation, but there's also FTX US. They also have the only U.S. regulated derivatives exchange, and he's an American citizen. So, come on, we got Julian Assange. Come on. Okay, so he put a corporation in the Bahamas. Does that really insulate him from the arm of the United States? He's an American citizen. He defrauded U.S. people. But, of course, he donated so much money to the right people. So that looks like why he'll probably be protected. And the betting markets are saying right now, 75% chance he will not be indicted by the end of the year. He's still walking around free. He's not even in cuffs. That right there, he should have been arrested immediately, right? Maybe he's out on bail, but no, he's just still walking around free. It's just insane.
Wow. I think this is, what you're basically saying, this is the end of America, when we're that corrupt. At the highest of levels, we're that corrupt.
We're that corrupt. Now, I do want to say, I'd like to kind of think where I think this goes. And I do want to say that there's a big distinction between Bitcoin and crypto. And the big distinction that I would put there is that commodities, so we think commodities of gold, oil, wheat, commodities don't have a central issuer. I can go buy land and get oil, buy land and get gold, buy land and grow wheat, and wheat can be grown or oil can be done all around the world. Bitcoin is the only digital commodity or only digital asset that has no issuer. So there's no company, there's no steering committee. There was no pre-mine where they released tokens to the environment, to the public. So Bitcoin is the only commodity or digital asset that has no issuer. All the other cryptocurrency, Ethereum being the second largest, had a 70% pre-mine. So there's a group of people, Vechain, that created Ethereum, created the tokens, kept most of them for themselves, and there's a steering committee. So they just changed the consensus protocol. So by the SEC's definition, those are security. Those are companies. They're companies. Bitcoin is a digital commodity, and it's the only one out of the 20,000 that are there. So a big distinction.
So are you invested in Bitcoin, and would you, and all that?
Of course. I think Bitcoin, I think this is bullish for Bitcoin. I think this is bad for cryptocurrency overall. And the reason why is the regulations will prevent the new regulations, I think will come from this, will prevent these venture capitalists from doing this pump and dump onto retail. And then all of that money that's been siphoned away from Bitcoin to go into this pump and dump schemes, I think will then go back to Bitcoin. I think it's going to be extremely bullish for Bitcoin.
Okay, once again, the Rich Dad Show, we don't make recommendations. We just talk about what we do. And for full disclosure, is I still have Bitcoin. I've never sold, but I bought it at 6,000, so I'm still in the money. And I also don't need the money. There's a big part of it. You know, you can take it all from me. It doesn't hurt me at all because I have gold, silver, real estate. I have other assets. But so do you think Tom Brady bet the farm on this one? That's what I'm hearing.
A lot of headlines were saying that Tom Brady and Giselle, invested their $650 million stake. But in my research, as best as I can tell, that's like their total net worth, $650 million. I would highly doubt they bet the farm on that. Reports have said it's probably somewhere in the mid to maybe even high 8 figures. So maybe that's, 20, 30, 40 million out of the 650 million is not a lot. As far as Tom making it back, I mean, he's at the end of his career. I mean, I don't know how much more he's going to make. So he's probably not going to make that back. But, losing 10, 20, even 50 million out of 650 million isn't going to put you in the poorhouse. But it's still a shame. And more importantly, the problem, and actually there's a class action lawsuit that just got filed against all these celebrity endorsers, which I think is wrong. And again, that goes to show how bad America is. People don't want to take responsibility for themselves. Because Tom Brady said it was a good company, I invested into it. And that's ridiculous. But it's definitely going to reshape the way that we look at this and have politics and policies around it.
So final word of this. I mean, this Sam Bankman-Fried, he's one of the strange looking person.
Yeah.
I mean, he dressed in cargo pants and socks. And I mean, he does his best to look strange. I mean, there's a thing called barbers and hairstylists who could cut his hair. But that's what I mean. They're not ugly. They're strange looking.
Right.
So what did he have? What made people think he was so brilliant? Because if I looked at him, I'd say, there's no way I even come close to you, much less your girlfriend. But man, what did he have? What was the charisma or the thing that sucked people in?
I think it's like most fraudsters and scamsters, and all the way back to the early days of the United States and the snake oil salesman, right? Where they talk in things that are so complex that people think they're smart and they don't want to seem stupid, so they don't even ask questions. And so they dazzle them with all these fancy words and buzzwords and things like that. And the average person just goes, oh, I guess he knows what he's talking about, and he makes me feel stupid, so I won't even dig in. And I'm guessing that's what it was. However, like he was at the Bitcoin conference this last year, Caitlin Long, who's a regulator out of Wyoming, I believe kind of ran circles around him. But for most people, I think they were just blinded by the amount of money, sheer greed, and they just looked the other way, just in the case with Bernie Madoff and everybody else. Also one thing about Bernie Madoff is Bernie Madoff sat on the board of what is now FINRA. Right? His, I think, brother was like one of the head guys at the SEC. And so usually these fraudsters actually take roles within the regulating body. Right. And so Sam Bankman-Fried also did that. So he was with the SEC and CFTC. He was on stage with Bill Clinton and Tony Blair. He was with Maxine Waters. And so I think then people kind of dismiss a lot of the questions because they see that charade.
But every person you mentioned, if I was standing next to him, I wouldn't stand next to him. You know what I mean?
Right.
I just really can't believe it. I just cannot believe it. So my friend Mark, thank you very much. Great job of researching this whole thing and tracking it. And let's see what shoe falls next, because I don't think all the doors have been opened yet, and there's more to come. So stay in touch.
There's more to come.